The standard pour. Standard. Pour. Standard. The standard pour.
Cool. All right. Welcome to the Standard Pour podcast. I got a buddy here, Preston Phillips here. Thank you for doing this, man. I
Thanks
appreciate
for having
it.
me.
Yeah. I mean, it's a big deal for you. I just want you to breathe, take a breath. I know it may be hard to do in coronavirus times, but this is 6 feet. We're both wearing masks.
Definitely.
So, just a little preface, I guess, here. We met a long time ago. Been friends for a while. We've all moved around a little bit.
Yep.
Came back to Dallas. You started brewing some beer.
Yep.
Yeah. You work for like Texas Ale Project, right?
I did.
That's some good stuff. Now you work at Manhattan Project.
Yep.
That's cool. I got to try y'all's stuff today.
Yeah.
Good stuff, I got to say. So, I don't know, man. I guess we'll just jump right into this. How do you? What do you love about what you do? What do you love about it?
Beer I love because it's like a little bit of, it's kind of a perfect mix of chemistry, biology, and craftsmanship. We have like certain things we have to adhere to make consistency right, and make sure that the yeast does what it needs to do. But at the same time, we also have a lot of creative control there on the hot side, as we say, like in the brew house. Really just, I love all aspects of it. I love the lab work. I love the recipe building. And more than anything, I think I love just watching the yeast grow, do its job. So
we've been friends for a while, and I've, social media, a lot of people hate it, but it's allowed people to connect, not being in the same spaces, so to speak. And I've seen you over the years. I believe I've seen you, post a book about yeast, like in specific, like you were reading this book about, all these different kinds of yeast, and it's just incredible. So a lot of people, when they think of brewing beer, they think, oh, let me just, I can go buy a kit from the store, whatever, it just sits there and then I have beer, you know what I mean? But maybe explain a little bit about how much more in depth that, it really is to make all this stuff happen. There's all different kinds of beers. I told you today I like sours, in particular is one of my new things. You got double IPAs, triple IPAs, barley wines, you got ales, you got porters, you got stouts, you got lagers, you got all this kind of stuff. A lot of people don't really think about that kind of thing. They may go to the store, pick up that Mr. Beer kit or whatever, and they're like, yeah, I brewed my own beer. What do you think about that? What do you,
Yeah, no, totally. That's like a really great point. Beer really is attributed more than anything to yeast. So like ales versus lagers versus sours, it's really, there's a lot to it because, an ale is probably your most common beer that you'll find. And that's because it's easily fermented at room temperatures. It just, you can brew it, set it in a closet, and it'll most likely do its job. Lagers are something that's a little more complex. You have to keep those temperatures like 55 to 60 degrees, and that's a very open interpretation. I know some beer geeks are probably going to watch this and be like, no, you need this, but generally 55 to 60 is an okay temperature for lagers. But you have to keep it cool, and that's harder to do, especially in Texas, when ambient temperatures are 90 to 110 degrees. But yeast character definitely plays a lot of a role in the beer. There was actually 2 beers that you tried at Manhattan Project today that they're the exact same recipe, but 2 different yeasts.
Right.
And it's really funny how...
Explain that. Yeah, explain that.
Yeah, so at Manhattan Project, X10, our extra pale ale, and Reaction, which is our Saison, they're the exact same yeast, but they are... One is fermented on a very neutral yeast, whereas the other is fermented on a Saison yeast. And that will add a lot more banana, clove, flavors, as well as drying out the beer. And, you know, even if you have the exact same recipe, you'll end up with two different final products.
Right.
So it's yeast character is everything. And that's, I think, you know, also definitely one of my favorite things about brewing is playing with yeast and just seeing, like we brewed our Pilsner and I pulled off 5 gallons, that was 2 days ago. And we just put 2 different Saison strains on it. And we've done that before, but it turns out to be this beautiful, like light Saison it's really incredible how you can have 2 beers that are the same thing but different. Now, as far as like sours go, because you were bringing up sours, sours are really an interesting thing in brewing because you can do it 2 ways. One way that you can make a sour is that you pitch both the yeast and the bacteria at the same time. And by bacteria, like lactobacillus or pediococcus, those are the organisms that are going to make your soured beers. And you can do that, and that's considered a mixed fermentation. Or you could also, which is what we do for our Bikini Atoll, is you basically make the wort, which is beer before it's beer, just sugar liquid. And you make the wort, and then you put the bacteria on it, and you monitor pH. And you watch for the pH to drop to whatever it may be, 3 pH, 4 pH, 3.5, whatever you want to do. And once it reaches that, you boil it again. And that's when you kill all the lactobacillus, add your hops, blah, 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 and then you put your yeast strain on it. And so you're really just basically fermenting acidified wort.
Right. So you listen to everything he said. It's a lot different than just picking up some kit and mixing it together. It's like a not a glorified, but it's a science, you know. And you have to learn a lot about stuff. And so there's a lot of places I've heard from different people like saying that the craft scene has trickled down here. In the United States, like British Columbia has been a great, craft scene for a long time.
Yeah.
It's kind of trickled down. I mentioned this when I came up to the brewery, that you go up north and you kind of get more craftier. Down here, Texas, has been kind of one of the later resurgences of craft beer. Honestly, I think it's great. What have you really enjoyed about the craft beer scene here, because you've lived, throughout, we've known each other, you lived in California, Colorado, other places or whatever, and you've seen, you experimented with beer. In the last few years, I've seen you get really interested in beer. It's like, what do you really enjoy about the craft scene here? I think really, from my perspective, is that there's been a lot of places popping up and a lot of places doing new stuff. You see people fall, you see people rise. Mm-hmm. What do you think makes these companies successful? What's your input, basically on that?
So I should point out that I think what has really drawn me to the beer scene is definitely totally different than from what has made a lot of these bigger breweries popular. Mm-hmm. It's really interesting. I like to point out all the time, like, the difference between somebody who brews beer and somebody who is a connoisseur of beer. Mm-hmm. Because you have your connoisseurs of beer, and they look at this very critically and just very, they deep dive into all these flavors and stuff. But your beer brewer, your typical beer brewer, we have kind of a joke that, like, pilsners are a brewer's beer, because it's like the more that you experience the beer industry and the more you're into it, the more you're just kind of like, well, I just want something light and easy, because I like drinking beer, so I don't want to get super drunk off of my first 2 beers. Yeah. But with that being said, I think the common ground there is that we all look for certain things in a beer, and especially considering different beer styles. You have tasting notes. You have, if it's a lighter beer, you look for the amount of yeast ester, which is the amount of flavor, and, like a Hefeweizen, you'll have a lot of banana to it, whereas, a Pilsner, you don't want that much banana.
Mm-hmm, right.
And so you know, there's a lot of room for play here in beer, and it's like it's very situational, I guess. I don't think that's the word I'm looking for, but that'll
Well,
work.
maybe let me kind of analyze this. Maybe I think so. You know, I worked at a distillery before, and I think one of the main differences is that you know when the starting product. So a lot of beer like from what I've gathered, you know, maybe I'm wrong, but I mean, you know, when you start out, you kind of place all these things in the beginning for this end product. When you distill something, it really kind of depends on the after scenario.
Yeah,
because you
absolutely.
age stuff or whatever. And there's a lot of aged beers and everything like that, and those are great. But I think when you're making beer, you're thinking about that initial flavor profile rather than like you can just kind of whip up something and then age it and then it'll be good, right? You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
I think that's probably different, and a lot of people don't really understand that when they're drinking a beer, because a lot of people, yeah, you're right. You know, I mean, we had this conversation earlier when we were saying that a lot of people come up like, what should I drink? Well, it's like, I don't know what do you like? And, you know, there's a lot of factors that go into what you're looking for, because I've had a lot of people personally from my experience come up and they say, hey, I want this kind of beer. I'm like, well, hey, you know, I got this kind of beer, and let me give you a sample of this, and let me let you try. And then they may end up choosing something completely different than what they were envisioning. Maybe, you know, because they don't really know. I mean, honestly, they don't know what they're talking about, right?
Yeah.
But like,
well, but also on that note, I mean, like my mom is a red wine drinker. Like she likes dry red wines, and I never thought that I could find a beer that she liked. But there was one day that I brought home a double IPA, like 9.2% alcohol, super hoppy. And I was like, you know, you probably won't like this, but I brought it, and she ended up loving it.
Yeah.
So you never know. You
yeah,
know?
that's cool. That's, yeah, you know, so I make a lot of mixed drinks, you know, and you know, people kind of have a goal that they want to reach with a mixed drink, but I feel like it's very translatable to beer. You know, it's like you can really, you know, if somebody's like, hey, you know, I really want a margarita, that beer you let me try, you know, that you guys are working on. What was it called?
That was Bikini Atoll
So you guys
key
are
lime coconut.
coming out with that soon, right? Or
Yeah,
is it going to be
I
something
reckon
you
it'll
just...
be canned next week, maybe the week after.
So yeah, you guys are distributing that. Okay.
We are.
Okay,
Yeah.
cool. Yeah. I mean, that was great. You know, I mean, it's like, but when you said that, it reminded me of a margarita. You know, I was like, yeah, this does remind me of a margarita a lot. You know, it's like if I was going to go to the bar and I'm like, hey, it's Cinco de Mayo, I want to drink some margaritas or whatever. You know, I mean, it's like, you know, you may be able to change somebody's mind with the beer itself. You know.
Yeah,
so
absolutely.
that's pretty cool. So how has business, you know, been affected by this situation? We're going through this pandemic right now, and I got to say, I said this to you earlier that you know, during hard times in the United States, you know, World War I, II, you know, we got the Great Depression, you know, all these different hardships we've had in the economy and generally as a society. There have been speakeasies that pop up during Prohibition. Alcohol sales was on the top, you know, in that time, you know, but. How has business been affected by this, you know, pandemic, so to speak? You know.
Yeah, no, I mean that's a really great point. Like, luckily for us, I mean, alcohol seems to be one of those things that is recession-proof, right? I mean, people are gonna drink as much, if not more, during times like these. But luckily for us, you know, and I can't speak for all breweries. All breweries have had their own battles. Some brews don't do cans, you know, and they've had a really, really hard time. And, you know, my thoughts go out to those breweries because I think everybody deserves to make it. But for us, it's been we've just kind of tried to roll with the punches. As my boss, Misty, says, it's just, you know, make lemonade. We've been given lemons, let's make lemonade. And so basically our keg sales have, at the beginning and through the mid-pandemic especially, had gone down to basically zero. We had nobody buying kegs. And so as a result, we had to transition to making entire 90-barrel batches, which is, I mean, somewhere like 12,000 gallons. We had to do 90.
So each barrel was like 55 gallons, right?
Barrel, there's not a complete connect as far as whiskey barrels and So
Okay,
in
yeah.
beer, we talk about British barrels, which is just a measurement that carried over from old British brewing days.
Yeah.
So a barrel is 31 gallons.
Okay.
Yeah. So basically a 90 barrel batch. I don't know the math off the top of my head. But
It's all right. We're not mathematicians.
There you go.
So yeah, I mean, so a lot of people don't understand like an IPA, right? Is that like a mistake product, right? Basically, because I know you're gonna laugh.
No,
at this.
I know
I'm just
exactly
saying,
what you're saying.
I know,
Yeah,
I know,
go
I know
ahead.
you know where I'm gonna go with this.
I do,
But
I totally do.
So basically what happened is they had to get across the Atlantic Ocean, right?
Yeah.
And so they had to add more hops, right? And so in turn that made the beer more hoppy and more alcoholic, right?
Yep.
And so then came your IPAs.
Exactly.
And that landed in New England, and that's a big hub for IPAs.
Yep.
And so I think it's funny, as a bartender, because I remember the first beer that the first IPA I ever tried was a Dogfish, 60 Minute or something like that IPA.
Oh yeah. 60
That was
minutes,
one of the first IPAs I ever tried, and that was a big hit, dude. People loved it.
Yeah.
They were trying to upgrade their lives, right? Because I joked with you earlier because you're a brewer, and I'm just a server, right? And so it's like, I mean, of course I try a lot of stuff, but I just serve the product. But like, I think people are like, I've had this. It's time to upgrade my life a little bit. But I tell people, I'm like, I think you don't really understand the history behind this beer and why it's a thing.
Yeah.
So, what do you have to say about that?
So yeah, no, IPAs are really funny. Like to me, especially the way I think about them, because IPAs, you're right. Like you had these long sailing halls where you had these beers, and the only way that they could keep them safe from literally souring bacteria. They
Right.
wanted to keep them from getting sour. So what you did is you added hops, because like lactobacillus is super sensitive to hops, and it will not grow in an environment with hops. So basically you add that, and then you're right. Like you end up with this hoppier beer, and I love how New England has kind of ran with it. And New England is kind of like the hub for hazy IPAs, because it started there. I mean, you had, 10 years ago, you had California and the West Coast IPAs, and that was just
Dogfish.
Dogfish Head.
Yeah.
Which Dogfish Head's actually in, they're in New England. I can't think of where Rehoboth Beach, Delaware.
Is that New England? It's not California?
Yeah, no,
Okay,
it's
all right.
Rehoboth Beach, Delaware. Delaware,
Gotcha.
excuse me.
Okay,
But, and they made, 60 minute, 90 minute are two of the best West Coast IPAs I've tasted.
East Coast?
No, those are actually proper West Coast.
Okay.
Yeah,
But they're made in the East Coast.
They are, yeah.
Okay.
So the way you differentiate is like West Coast is more bitter. They tend to be clear. They have a darker character. Like actually that Hoppenheimer you're drinking, that's a West Coast IPA.
Yeah, I wanted to talk about this. I wanted to say what we're drinking, So what am I drinking?
So you're drinking Hoppenheimer, which is Manhattan Project's West Coast IPA. And it's
Great. It's really good. And I got to say, I'm not a fan of IPAs, but I like this.
That says a
I do.
lot.
I'm just saying, I don't like them, but it's good. I really.
Cool. No, I'm glad you
What are
like
you
it.
drinking?
So I'm actually drinking Reaction, which is our Saison. This is the one I was talking about earlier, where X10 and Reaction were the same beer, same ingredients across the board, but different yeast.
Yeah, I've stalked you a little bit, and I know, like you've worked on some saisons. Is that right? Or
Saisons are my
is that so? Is that what would you say like your choice beer? What would you say it would be?
Definitely a Saison.
Yeah.
I mean,
okay, cool.
For like the beer nerds out there that are watching this,
It's coming from the horse's mouth. Okay.
Horse's mouth.
Just,
For the beer nerds, like for the home brewers, it's Pilsner, wheat, Munich, Carapils, 3711. If you get that, you do. If you don't, you don't. It's cool, but
if you don't, do some homework. I mean, this is on. You can rewind
or
and
do some
watch.
home brewing.
Yeah, well, that's really what I mean by homework. But like you can rewind it and then play it again, and then rewind it and play it again. Make some notes, whatever.
Yeah.
We were talking, earlier about like how, a lot of times people are force-fed information and how much of that you really retain.
Yep.
But if you really are interested in seeking out stuff, I mean, it's a lot of it's right in front of you. You just have to, seek it out and do it, right? So
Absolutely.
that's cool. Yeah, I mean, well, that's cool, man. So Yeah, when we were hanging out, you didn't have such awesome hair. Your hair is long and
It's about
luxurious.
20 inches now.
So we were talking about this earlier about the Corona times.
Yeah.
Do you think beer is nutritious? Do you think it's good for nutrition? I mean, what do you think?
It's a hard question because, no, I do think it is. I mean, okay, well, let me put it this way. Beer under 4.2% alcohol by volume technically hydrates you.
Right.
So, but yeah, no, I do really think like beer scientifically has a lot of protein in it. And, you could go all sorts of ways with that. Drinking hoppier ales, maybe you're passing that antibacterial property onto your body. Who knows? But I can tell you for sure, beer is high in protein. It has some carbohydrates to it, which, take that for what it is. Like if somebody's on a diet and they want to avoid carbs, probably avoid beer. Go straight to vodka.
I gotta say, because I'm on a diet, and I think the diet is really just added exercise. I think a lot of people don't really exercise the way they need to.
Yep.
The Egyptians built pyramids on beer. I mean, that's been written. I mean,
Yeah.
I'm not a scientist, right? But I'm just saying that this has been,
Yeah, no, you're right.
This is historical fact,
It is.
and that's why I asked the question. So I believe personally, beer is good for you.
I think so too. I mean, really, it's fermented oatmeal.
Yeah.
If we're being realistic.
Yeah. So I mean, it's just like if you think that you're taking in too much carbs, you need to just do a little bit more exertion, right? Maybe fuck a little more or whatever. I don't know. I'm just
Fucking
whatever.
helps.
Yeah. Anyways, yeah, that's cool. Just some technical difficulties here. Yeah. So you live here, in Dallas. I live in Plano. You live kind of down in the heart. A lot of people talk about, when they come to Texas and they come to this area, we have kind of different factions, so to speak here. It's like you go to Fort Worth, you go to Dallas, you go to Arlington, you go to, whatever, all these. I live in Plano. It's like, we live in different segments of the city, but it's all considered DFW.
Yep.
And when you travel, you say, I'm from Dallas, whatever. It's like, I live in Plano, I say, I'm from Dallas, So it's like, but there are a lot of different, restaurants and bars. Dallas has one of the highest per capita consumption of alcohol and food of any state. And, I just kind of wanted to ask you, what are your favorite places to go around town? What are a couple places you like to go? If you're going to, you got a night off, where are you going to go? What are you going to drink? What are you going to do? What are you going to see?
Cool. No, I will totally regret saying this, but one of my favorite places, and I say I'll regret it because I try to keep this place to myself, but one of my favorite places to go drink is Sons of Herman Hall. Off of, hell, it's in Deep Ellum, just like the east end of Deep Ellum, but it's basically a fraternity, and not college fraternity, but it's an actual fraternal order, and they sell life insurance, but they also have a bar there, and if you go to that bar and there's not an event going on, a lot of times they have a lot of big events going on, which is great too, but if you go there on a night that there's not an event, you can literally walk around the whole place, go into their grand ballroom, and it's one of the best dive bars in Dallas, honestly. But aside from that, I love Angry Dog. Angry Dog in Deep Ellum is awesome. Yeah, they have great food. I love Truckyard. Truckyard's an awesome place to go.
Hey.
Yeah, hey, yeah, seriously, no, the Truckyard is awesome.
Thanks, man. That's awesome. Yeah,
No,
that's where I work.
I love it. I frequent Truckyard.
Different ones, but we'll do that later. We'll talk about that later. Well, that's cool, man. Yeah, I just kind of wanted to get your take. I mean, it's crazy because it took me 40 minutes to drive here, whatever. So that just tells you it's like, if you want to go out and get drunk, a lot of people. So I got a DWI. I'm not ashamed to admit it. It's on my record. Anybody can find that shit. I'm just saying that's like if Uber were a thing back when I got my DWI, I probably wouldn't have it. So nowadays we live in a society where you can just basically call somebody, hey, take me here, or whatever. But it's like when you start talking about 20, 30 minutes or whatever, we're talking about different. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah,
it's just, it's like,
totally.
I'm not going to come to Deep Ellum every weekend.
No,
if I
of
live in
course
Florida.
not.
You know what I
Yeah.
mean? But
it's not practical.
but at the same time, it's like we have a lot of cool places, and that brings me to my next point. I'm just we're in a crazy time period, and restaurants are hurting a lot, and
Yep.
so I just want to say, it's like we need to support our local breweries, our local restaurants, because they
Absolutely.
truly have the best product. You can go buy a Miller Lite or whatever. That's great, I guess. But like, you can get like that Pilsner I had from Manhattan Project today. That was one of the best Pilsners, I gotta say. I'm not even bullshitting here, that I've ever tried.
It's awesome.
Ever. And I've drank a lot of beer. I mean, I've drank a lot of beer. And
me too, man.
and
Me
I'm
too.
just saying, it was really good. And so you got to support your local business, because we need this in this time.
Yep,
And
absolutely.
don't forget about your neighbors. Don't forget about your friends. That's just a PSA I got to say. But
Yep.
yeah, no, I'm thankful that I got to come and try and see your setup, and it's really nice, man. You guys keep it really clean. Cleanliness is important in this time, and of course, you got to be clean brewing beer, because you got bacteria you're growing. People don't understand that. I was talking about kombucha today. And it's you basically have to you have to build a bacterial disc.
Yep.
And you have to transfer that disc.
The SCOBY, the
SCOBY,
symbiotic,
yes, sir.
Symbiotic culture of bacteria.
Yes,
and
sir.
yeast.
You have to build a SCOBY, transfer that, and then use previously brewed kombucha with another SCOBY, and you have to introduce that, and you have to. It's like you got a little baby,
It really is.
and you gotta grow it. You gotta, and then you can keep that baby, and you can use it, over and over again
until the baby becomes
until the
a mother.
baby becomes a mother, and then and then you can make mini SCOBYs.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's great. Yeah, so I mean, like, it's crazy. A lot of people don't understand that you're playing with fungus, bacteria. It's pretty cool. It's very, very science.
Definitely,
And
definitely.
We were talking about earlier that people, like I said, you want to learn something, you take it in, whatever. This is a whole nother applicable science. Anybody really can get into. I mean, obviously there's certain people that become elevated and get really good at it and sell really well. And it's like, it seems like you guys make a really great product that I really like. But it's just if you're ever stuck thinking like you're having an existential crisis, thinking about like, what do I do with my life? It's just like, you just got to think. I mean, the answer might be right underneath your tongue, right there.
Literally underneath your tongue.
So, maybe in this time when you're stuck at home, you get all this time in the world.
Right.
And don't, do some research. Don't go out and buy one of these homebrew kits. I mean, that's all right. That's fine, but
Yep.
you can really experiment and
Totally. And on that note, I'd like to point out that like here in Dallas we have a homebrew shop, homebrew headquarters, and they've been open since like 1971. And like those guys are great guys. If you want to get into homebrewing, if that's something that kind of strikes your fancy, go over there. Kelly and the guys are really great.
Where's that at?
It's up in Richardson.
Yes. The little, it's on there's a 2-story shopping complex?
Yeah.
Fuck yes. Okay, so
Yeah.
I'm making mead, right?
Yeah.
And so I wanted to talk to them before I got my honey. So, I went in there and talked to them and told them about my goals. And, they were just so fucking cool. They were like, hey, so what do you want to do? So one of the guys, I can't remember his name. He was like saying that, he does some fruity meads.
Okay.
Or whatever. And, he was kind of talking about that. And I was like, well, I'm just kind of getting into this. And, excuse me, I guess the main point is that, if you have an idea, you can go kind of bounce it off with these people. And,
they're great about that.
yeah, that's awesome. That's crazy that you mentioned that, because that's my go-to shop.
I love those guys.
So like a long time ago, me and my dad brewed beer like the old-fashioned way.
Cool. Awesome.
And I was young, and I remember. So, basically, you know, my parents were big hockey fans, and so when the Stars won the Stanley Cup, you know, I was probably like what 8 years old. It was '99, right? So my grandparents were over, my parents were over. They were all watching TV, all sitting on the couch, and it was in triple overtime. Every overtime that happens, it's sudden death, right? So a goal goes in, boom, the game is done, right? So nobody wanted to leave the TV, right? So you got 20-minute periods, and so my parents would be like, hey, can you go grab me a drink or whatever? They used to call it a drink, right? It wasn't a beer, right? So they used to they'll tell me to get a drink, right? And then it was like, and then I would open it, okay, for them, you know, and like I would use my shirt, right? I'm an 8-year-old kid, okay?
Right.
And I would open my shirt and CPS, come down on me now, okay? Whatever, dude. So I would open the thing and then they would give me a sip of their fucking beer, you know, and I distinctly remember me feeling funny. And I asked them why I feel funny. And they were like, oh, it's okay. It's just late at night. You're just tired.
You're just tired.
And I look back at this now and I'm like, my parents were bad parents. No, I look back at this time. I look back at this time and I'm like, they were rewarding me with beer, you know, back then. But yeah, so it's like my dad, you know, wanted to do the homebrew shit and, you know, included me on the activity. You know
That's
what I'm saying?
awesome.
And that was fun. So we went to that same shop.
That's
Is
awesome.
what I'm trying to say. This is way back then, you know, and I'm
Yeah.
28 now, and I can't remember. This is probably when I'm 10 years old, you know, so that place has been there for a long time, so they know what they're talking about. That's cool.
Been there forever. They're good guys.
Yeah, cool, man. Yeah, so I don't know. I mean, I just wanted to ask earlier, you know, because about the effect on business. It's like there's a lot of places closing down and all that kind of stuff, and it's hilarious how brands like you know, Corona, that nobody wants to buy Corona because of the coronavirus. Isn't that, you know,
Yeah, that's
I don't
hilarious.
know. I mean, and it's like then you told me a story, so you know, about the islands. What is it again?
It was the Marshall Islands.
Yeah, so they used to
Yeah.
do nuclear tests, right? And they didn't
Yeah.
move the people out far enough, so a lot of people got sick.
Right.
And then you guys are releasing a beer.
Yeah, called
Kind of with
Bikini
that-
Atoll.
Yeah, exactly,
Yeah.
which is those group of islands.
Yep.
And people were trying to protest.
Yeah, they were pretty mad. They actually created like hashtag boycott Manhattan Project, and this was actually before I worked for the company, so I wasn't a part of all this, but I saw it from the third person, and you know, the owners at Manhattan Project kind of dug in their heels. You know, they made a statement that this is not anything about, you know.
Yeah, promoting this.
No, it's not like
Shit
we're
that happened,
promoting
yeah.
that. It's more about, and I don't think they said this, but this is my opinion personally, is that it was more about awareness. Because I had not known anything about Bikini Atoll until I saw the beer.
Yeah.
And then, you know, that strikes you to do some research like, oh, wow, well, this happened, so now I know. But, yeah, it was definitely a messy situation. Eventually it all kind of calmed down, thank God. But, yeah, they definitely raised some hell for a little while. Tried to boycott Manhattan Project.
Yeah, it's you know, to me it's kind of hilarious, you know. It's like you know, I don't know, people get really offended nowadays about stuff, and you kind of have to watch what you say. And you know, from my perspective, it's like, you know, I'm kind of, you know, I came up today and, you know, I had forgot my mask at home, and I was like, is this guy going to be wearing a mask? Like, what do I do? You know, and I was worried about that.
Yeah, we
know?
suck at social distancing.
I was worried about, you know, just, I'm worried about human interaction, but I've also mentioned this, and you know, who knows, you know, I don't know what I know even, you know, but I'm just saying, like, at the end of the day, you know, you have to really think about, you know, what's important, and like, you know, human interaction. You know, you can't live in fear. You know, at the end of the day, I think that we all really agree on that we have to, you know, we can't live without social interaction. And what do you think? So brings me to my next point. What do you think the importance of beer is in social interaction. And I always like to say the term liquid courage. I think a lot of people say liquid courage. What do you think the importance of beer is in different functions of society? You know, I mean, because you go to business meetings and you know, a lot of people are like, hey, let me get you a drink, you know, whatever. You know, a lot of business is based around alcohol.
Yep.
So what do you think the importance of beer is, and just the foundation of society? I mean, come on, like since the dawn of time, we've been drinking beer. You know, so what do you think about that?
Yeah, no, I think you're definitely spot on. I mean, beer and alcohol in general has been a part of human history for as long as human history has been human history, right? I mean, like you said earlier, it's like beer has been a thing since the Egyptian times. I mean, like I think the story goes that Egyptians left a barrel of grain out and it got caught in the rain, and then you had beer, and you know, like King Midas was buried with a fermented beverage that was consisted of honey, grapes, and barley.
Was it a golden ale? Sorry.
No, it actually was. It was technically a golden ale. I mean, Dogfish Head actually makes a beer called Midas Touch that is literally,
So I was referencing.
Yeah, exactly. So, no, I mean, you know, alcohol, it's funny, you think about human history with alcohol and, you know, like talking about in England, I mean, they've had English milds and English strong ales since God knows when. And it's a part of human togetherness. I mean, it brings us all together for sure. Like you said, liquid courage. I mean, I think there's a lot to be said about that. I don't know if I could even give it justice speaking on it because it's such a big deal. But
I just think that in this time, I think that we need it more than ever.
I agree.
You know, I think that I just think that we need to break bread, you know, get together and just enjoy what we have in each other, you know, because we've been social distancing.
Right.
But I think what we really need is social togetherness.
Absolutely.
And I think, you know, a lot of people have been taking this situation. They've been separating themselves from each other, and I think that really separates yourself from yourself, you know, and I think that's the opposite of what we need, you know.
Yep.
So on that note, I'd like to have another beer, you know.
Help yourself. I got like one of each, I think.
So what do we got?
So this is the coconut porter, pilsner. That's the Hoppenheimer that you just had. This is also Hoppenheimer, and that's our coffee stout.
Okay, I want to try that one.
Yeah, I think that's one of the only ones you haven't tried yet.
Yeah,
so.
for sure. Yeah, no, I appreciate the tour. I mean, it was great. Yeah, I gotta say, like I've been to a lot of breweries, and you know, I mean, I'm wearing a St. Elmo's hat, and it's like that's one of my favorite. I mean, that was like some of the best beer I've ever tried. So shout out to you guys. But
St. Elmo's great.
You guys have a great operation, man.
Well, thank you.
I really appreciate the tour.
Hopefully, one of these days we can collaborate with St. Elmo.
But yeah, man. I mean, so there's a lot of different stuff. So you know, you got beer. You know, that's like a thing, right? So you got like other deviations, right? Like made with yeast, right? So you got like wine is made with yeast.
Yep.
Right. You have like mead is something that I'm working on, made with yeast.
Hell yeah.
And so how many different kinds of yeast are there? You know.
Oh man.
Like so.
There's a lot.
Yeah, there's a lot,
there's
right?
a lot.
And when people want to get into this, you know, it's like I said, you know, you're reading this book on fucking yeast.
Yeah.
You know, so it's like people. What I've noticed at the grocery stores, you go down the aisle, and it's like there's no yeast, there's no flour, there's no whatever, and a lot of people associate yeast with baking stuff. You know, they don't think about the fact that you can drink bread.
Right. Liquid bread.
And get rewarded.
Yeah.
In a whole different way, right? You know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
like,
totally,
I mean, like there's even beer bread. You know, the options are fucking endless for this. You know what I mean? And
Absolutely.
And I really one of the main reasons I'm saying this is because I think that people should really try their hand in this shit. I mean, you can get this stuff at the store, cheap as fuck, and kind of have your own operation going and experiment. And I think that is way more rewarding, the whole process.
Definitely.
Than the end product. Just doing this stuff, and it's at least for me, and so and the crazy thing about all this stuff is we've found, through history, that this is a natural thing, right? So this isn't even something that's a man-made thing.
No, yeah.
This is something
natural.
that happens naturally, and they stumbled upon this. From my understanding, so I'm reading a book called *Sapiens*. You heard of that book, right?
I haven't.
So I mean, I recommend it. I mean, it's really great.
Cool.
It's kind of minorly biased, whatever. But it's a history of humans and their evolution and there's a lot of different types of the human being. From what we know, there's different types, different levels, so to speak, and they all had to figure this shit out. So basically what they did is they would just go and eat stuff and drink stuff and figure it out. Like if it made you sick, they wouldn't do it anymore.
Then don't drink it.
If you could digest it, they would do it. And then then they figured out stuff that would make them feel a certain type of way. They wouldn't be able to, what I'm saying? If you have violent diarrhea, maybe not eat that anymore, right?
Right.
So that's what they used to do. Nowadays, we have a much elevated version of that science. But I just think that it's important for people to understand that it is a science. And that the people that make beer and the people that the people that brew beer and the people that do all kinds of stuff. Like I used to work at a distillery, so the first part is making a brewer's wine, distiller's wine.
Yeah.
And so it's like you try to make that about 14 to 17% alcohol. But like I said before, it's like you're not focused on the taste of that.
Right.
You're just putting shit in there to whatever. But that's what a lot of society did in the beginning. Imagine going back several thousand years, and then you're drinking mead, and it tastes fucking horrible, and you're like, it's going to be nothing like what we have today. So we've drastically improved on that science, and it's really cool, to see people doing it, and it's really becoming popular here in Texas, which I like, so
definitely.
So yeah, I wanted to ask you too. We've been music fans. We've been big into music for a long time. That's kind of what connected us in the beginning.
It absolutely is. Yeah.
And I think, what is your take on the connection between getting drunk and the arts? What is the connection there? What do you think about that?
I mean, I think I can only speak personally with that, but I think personally, I'm definitely a lot more into music. When I'm drunk. I mean, I'm into music when I haven't drank, right? But for instance, if I have a good couple beers, I'm a lot more likely to pick up that guitar and start jamming out on something. Right. I think maybe the creative process is a little more expedited.
So, we back in the day, we used to listen to a lot of house music and electronic music and stuff like that, So, I haven't been to a fucking party where people weren't drinking, with whatever they're doing and all that crap, But I just was curious, what are you into lately? What have you been listening to? What are your musical influences? Because I know you said that you every now and then still try to jam and all that kind of stuff. So what do you listen to nowadays?
Yeah, honestly, these days, and I'm half ashamed, but not really to say this, that these days I've been getting back into 90s music. I have tickets to see Matchbox 20 in August, and goddamn, I'm so excited. But aside from that, I mean, I've been getting into like the War on Drugs. They have some really good stuff. I really don't. There's no specific style of music that I listen to. I've been listening to, like, I listen to hip hop, a lot of TDE, Top Dog Entertainment, like Kendrick Lamar's.
Definitely.
Record label, stuff like that. But TDE, War on Drugs, Sublime. I will always be into Sublime, dude.
Yeah, definitely.
You can never get me away from Sublime. I love Sublime.
I think it's something that have definitely brought us together. You know.
Yeah, totally.
Like, that's my favorite band for sure.
Their self-titled thing is.
It's crazy because music brings. I feel like alcohol brings like a greater enjoyment in music. It's like you it's hard to go to a show. If you're sober, you're probably not watching this. So, but like it's like if you go to, I'm just saying, if you go to a show, it's like so, I don't know. There's just something about it that just gets you deep into whatever you feel. It amplifies that feeling that you have, and I think that's awesome. So maybe we've said this before, alcohol is definitely behind some of the resurgence of arts in our society. A lot of people, have definitely used alcohol and stuff like that in their music and everything like that. So, but yeah, that's definitely something that brought us together, and it's funny how much we're into alcohol nowadays too. As well as music. But so I don't know, man. I mean, what else do you have to say about your project? What else? Do you got anything that people need to know? About
shit. I don't know. I mean, we just make beer. Yeah. We just make beer, and we do it for all of the people that drink it. That's it.
Fuck yeah.
I mean, I love making beer for myself, but it's not as fun if somebody else doesn't enjoy it.
When you see somebody enjoy it, right?
Yeah. That is the cherry on top.
Definitely. Yeah, you were talking about cooking earlier, and like I'm big into cooking. Yeah. I cook a lot, but
I wish I was bigger in cooking.
I think it's very similar, to be honest.
Totally.
Because one of the reasons why there's nothing like having a nice girl over, you say, hey, I'm gonna cook you a steak, you do it perfectly, and you're like, and then you see the enjoyment on their face, and it's like you don't even have to eat the steak, it's like just the enjoyment on somebody's face and trying the beer, is great.
Yep,
so,
absolutely.
Absolutely. I love that. So I think that's a big, comparison is that in this. I think because a lot of people stipulate and they say, you just want to fucking make this shit because you like to drink or whatever. It's really the opposite. It's because you like to see other people enjoy it.
Absolutely.
Right?
That's a great way to put it.
I think I can agree with that, definitely. But so I just want to say a couple things. Standard Pour Podcast. You can find me on YouTube. You can find this interview on YouTube. I've done some other episodes, of course, on there. And, wherever podcasts are found, you can listen to the audio. iTunes, Spotify, Stitcher, all those other kind of things. I work at Truck Yard in the Colony. We're opening up back on the 21st. So we're going to only be open through Thursday through Sunday. Those are the best days to come anyways. So... But, the weather's nice. It's hot. We all know that. Living in Texas, it's hot. So come out, enjoy yourself a beer. We got lots of hydrating options. Manhattan Project, where's that located? Can you tell?
We're in Oak. I don't know if it's Oak Cliff or Bishop Arts, but we're off of Sulphur Street, like right off of, oh God. I'm bad at this. I just started working there like 2 months ago.
Where are we right now?
Right now we're
Live
in
Oak
and Live Oak and Peak.
It's near there.
Yeah, it's
near there. I mean, like,
yeah. So
check it out. I mean, they have some really great stuff, man. Your name is Preston.
I am.
And you're one of the brewers there, and you do a great job, man. And I'm really appreciative of you coming on here, talking a little bit about beer and all that kind of stuff. I love some beer, and I don't know what else to say. Check it out, and hopefully you like this shit. In the future, I might try to integrate this stuff with some other activities of mine. Just stay posted, and we'll let you know. But either way, come see me. I'll let you try whatever you want to try. We have like 25 taps inside. We got 8 taps outside that we rotate. All kinds of craft stuff. I'm trying to get some Manhattan Project over there, hopefully. Shout out to Cotton, my GM. If you're watching this, I'm going to talk to you about this later. And I've really tried everything they have to offer, and it's fucking fantastic. Also, the marketing on this shit is insane. I mean, look at the... I mean, the can is great. I mean, I love this geometric shit.
That's our crowler.
I love the geometric shit. It's like... I'm a big fan of simplicity. You know what I mean? Like if you can make a design, because a lot of the stuff, you know, I mean, people market. It's a lot of marketing. You know what I mean? That's kind of what gets you out there. It is disappointing because I believe in the product, you know, but you guys have a cool looking product as well.
Well, thank you.
And if anybody doesn't know about the Manhattan Project, research that shit, because it's very interesting. The CIA released 13 million pages of documents,
something like that,
based on different projects they've ran and stuff like that. I don't know if the Manhattan Project is one of them, but like, you know, you got like stuff like you know, what is it, god damn it, the project where they dose acid with people. What is that called?
MK2.
Yeah.
Or
MK Ultra.
MK Ultra.
MK Ultra. They release all these documents on there. That has nothing to do with what we're talking about, but it's still cool stuff. So
still look it up. Yeah.
Check it out. But actually, the Manhattan Project in U.S. history is actually worth learning about. Anything else you want to say? You know, before we finish this out?
Nothing except for like, thanks. Appreciate you bringing me on here, man.
I appreciate you. I mean, you know, everybody has a podcast, and I'm just another guy. I'm another guy.
Nobody has a podcast like this.
I'm another guy. I'm just a guy. So, we have a Patreon. It's, I have a Patreon. It's.
Are you selling nudes?
That's on my OnlyFans. Standard Pour Podcast on Patreon, and find us wherever you listen to podcasts. I hope that you watch it because you know, we're both very handsome people and good to look at. So, anyways, check it out on YouTube. But all right, this is it.
Hell yeah!
Hell yeah, brother!
Hell yeah, brother!
I'm pissed that I totally derailed from that thing I was going to ask. I still cannot remember. I was like, hopefully if I talk and talk and talk, I'll remember what I'm saying.
The Standard Pour. Standard. Pour. Standard. The standard pour.